Chapter 1. C-A-S-S. There are 3 things you should know about me. 1, I wear as little makeup as possible. I don't like to be bothered at work, and when people see me on a Monday morning, my face definitely does not say, "Come and talk to me about Microsoft Excel." 2, I run 5 miles every day, and I lift weights too. Yes, I'm stronger than you. Sorry, boys. And 3, I am the best person in the IT department. I know you're not used to having a woman fix your computer, especially not such a powerful one, but you'll just have to learn. So when I saw him early on a Monday morning fighting with the photocopy machine, I knew it was trouble. Nobody liked the photocopiers because photocopiers are designed by people who only understand pain. But men especially don't like photocopiers because they look like they should be simple to deal with, but they're not. I don't want to interrupt your morning workout, but some of us use that for making copies. The man gasped and immediately stopped kicking the machine. Clearly he hadn't noticed I was there, and his face went completely red. And there it was. Ping. Attraction. Here's the thing. When I told you that I don't wear makeup and lift weights, you probably assumed I only liked women. And you wouldn't be wrong 99% of the time. But that 1% of the time I see men who just have something in their eyes, like a frightened animal. And for some reason, the IT part of my brain says, well, let's fix that. Except with men, you couldn't turn them off and on again. That's exactly what I did with the photocopier, though, and the machine jumped back into life printing his copies. Now the redness had traveled down his face and onto his neck, and I was starting to wonder if I should call an ambulance. Then he pushed his thick brown hair out of his eyes and said, "Thanks." "Just doing my job," I said, putting on a big smile. "I work in IT, Cass." Cass, short for Cassandra. He just looked at me. "You know my name?" "Oh, right." He hit his forehead to say I'm stupid, but he hit it a bit too hard and quietly said, "Ow." That ping was getting louder in my head. This man was like a piece of wet spaghetti, and for some reason I was very attracted to him. "I'm Fergus," he said, the redness finally starting to leave his face. "Sorry you had to see that. I don't usually get angry. It's just, I'm really, really bad with technology, and there are my copies." He grabbed the papers and ran to the door. "Wait," I called. "You didn't tell me which department you are." He stopped and bit his lip. "I'm Nigella's new assistant." My heart went cold. Nigella, the head of our branch, our boss, and possibly the nastiest creature on earth. "Ah," I said. "Good luck." He gulped and left the room. I didn't expect to see him again after that. If he was working for Nigella, he'd be working very hard for her. Somehow he must have hidden his lack of technology skills in the interview. When Nigella found out, she would probably fire him. I made my copies, drank some coffee, and went to solve computer issues. Several of them just involved turning them off and on again. Did I really get paid for this? I couldn't complain. It was easy work. When I returned to my desk, I found an envelope on it. That was strange. Nobody tried to contact the IT department by post. Maybe it was a wedding invitation. That was what our company did, make wedding invitations. There was just one word written on the envelope. Cass. I opened it and found a letter inside with beautiful handwriting. Dear Cass, thank you so much for your help this morning with the photocopier. My copies came out looking very smart. If you ever need a favor, let me know. Kind regards, Fergus. I almost laughed. I felt like I was in a TV show getting invited to a party in the king's castle. A favor. Could a date be a favor? I jumped into my chair and opened my email program. I was all ready to message him when I realized something. If he wrote me a letter, he probably expected me to reply the same way. And when he saw my ugly handwriting, he had to be a traditional kind of guy if he wrote me a letter. He had been wearing a sweater and a bow tie and cute old-fashioned round glasses. He wouldn't accept a date by email, but I couldn't go into Nigella's office and ask him, could I? Nigella was awful, even worse than people who designed photocopiers. She would fire him and then fire me for behaving in a way not suitable for the workplace. There was no doubt. I had to reply by letter. Ugh, I cried, pulling at my short hair. There was only one person I could ask for help with this, and I really didn't want to ask them. But what choice did I have? I picked up my phone and sent a voice message. Hey, Joe, I need your help. Fergus. I knew it was stupid to send a letter. I mean, who still sends letters these days? But I had to thank her. If she hadn't come and saved me, I would have had the worst first day at work ever. Nigella already wanted to kill me for spilling coffee on her desk. If I couldn't even make a basic copy, she would eat me. It had also been a stupid idea to move here. Who was I to move to a big city like this? Everything was so fast, and everyone was so busy, and you couldn't live without technology here. It was everywhere. I didn't see Cass again for a few days, and slowly I got used to working with Nigella. I made sure to be very nice to the photocopier and to never spill any food or drink on Nigella's desk. Actually, I just stopped eating and drinking in the room in general, but I couldn't stop thinking about Cassandra. She was interesting. Not the kind of woman you met in the small village where I came from. But I had looked completely stupid in front of her. There was no way she would be my friend. I shouldn't have sent that letter. Then I opened my post box in the staff room and found an envelope with my name written on it. I took it out and opened it, and huge amounts of glitter poured out. Dear Fergus, you're very welcome here. There was a word that had been written and then crossed out. It looked like handsome. I was just doing my job, but I do know a favor you can do for me. Come to dinner with me tonight. I'll be waiting outside at 7. Kinder regards, Cass. Close your mouth, Fergus, or something might fly into it. I jumped as Nigella walked behind me. I tried to fold up the letter and hide it, but it was still pouring glitter everywhere, right onto the carpet. Did a unicorn invite you to its birthday party? She said, sniffing unhappily. Whatever, as long as it's outside of work hours. Clean that up before you leave. Yes, Miss Hopkins, I waited for her to leave and then opened the letter again. I didn't love the glitter mainly because of the cleaning work it had just given me, but the handwriting was extraordinary, and there went my heart. Ping, just like that damn photocopier. Cass. This was stupid. I was stupid. What was I doing here, waiting outside in the cold street? He would probably see the letter and think I was a freak. But that wasn't anything new. Lots of people thought women with short hair and big arms were freaks. It would have been fine if Joe had just written it like I asked, but he'd had to write the word handsome. And while I was crossing it out, Penny had walked into the room and asked what we were doing. 5 minutes later, the letter was covered in pink glitter. When I told her off, she started crying, and then I felt like a terrible aunt. So I had to give Penny a very big bar of chocolate to make her happy again. I almost let her draw a unicorn on the letter, but that would have been too far. I didn't want Fergus to really think I was a freak. Penny was my niece, who I loved with all my heart. I looked after her a lot because her father, my brother Greg, was a single dad and didn't find it easy. But I was terrible with her because she loved glitter and unicorns and pretty handwriting, and all I knew how to do was fix computers and motorbikes. I was going to look after her tonight, but then I got the idea of asking Fergus on a date, and so Greg was looking after her instead. But God, what if Fergus didn't want to go on a date with me? Or what if Nigella had him working late? I could go up to her office and ask, but then if he didn't want to see me... Hi, Cass. And there he was, standing in a long brown coat and hat like Sherlock Holmes, his cheeks a bit red. And I didn't think it was just from the cold. I smiled. Ready for dinner. I promise there will be no glitter involved. Fergus. We went to a steak restaurant, which was nice. I was worried she was going to take me to a sushi restaurant, and I would have to admit I didn't know how to use chopsticks. So she said while we waited for our food, "How's life with Nigella?" Ugh, I said, covering my face with my hands. She's going to fire me any day I can feel it. I was just feeling confident with the photocopier, and then she told me to create a new email system for her. All I know is reply and delete. I didn't know there were other options. Oh dear, she said, touching my hand. I can help you, you know. My heart beat fast, but before I could reply, our food arrived. What do you do in your free time? I asked, trying to look normal as I ate. She had touched my hand. That was more than friendly, right? I mean, was this a date? God, I wished I understood these things. She smiled at my question and started talking. And that was when I realized a relationship couldn't happen for us. Cass rode motorbikes, climbed mountains, and lifted weights. Me? I got tired carrying the shopping home. I was short, very thin, and I dressed like Dr. Watson, Sherlock Holmes's assistant. I didn't even know how to use a photocopier without breaking it. She needed a strong man, a real man, or a strong woman. Someone like Nigella. I imagined them together and felt sick. Are you okay? Said Cass. Oh, God. I've just talked all evening, haven't I? I'm sorry, Don't be sorry, Anne, I said. I didn't want to talk about my hobbies because then she would realize just how weak I was. "Your bill," said the waiter. "Sign here." "Huh?" said Cass. "Why do I have to sign? Our card machine is rather old. We just want to make sure." Cass opened her mouth like she was going to argue, but then she looked at me briefly and stopped. Okay, that's fine." He handed her a pen and she looked at the paper. I moved forward without thinking. I always loved seeing people's handwriting. I knew what Cass's looked like, but it was always better seeing it in person. Then I realized her hands were shaking. "Is something wrong?" I said. She bit her lip. "No." She quickly wrote a signature. I wanted to be nice, but the only way I could describe it was ugly, very ugly. Like a spider got drunk and was sick on the paper. She threw the bill at the waiter and stood up. "I better go." "Wait," I said, my brain working slowly. You didn't write that letter yourself?" Now it was her turn to go red. "I got help. Look, my handwriting is awful. God, you probably think I'm a real I can help you." She stopped putting on her scarf and looked at me. "What with not being a freak?" Huh? Was that how she saw herself? "No, I mean, I can help you improve your handwriting. I actually enjoy it." I bit my tongue. It was a stupid idea. Nobody needed good handwriting anymore. I loved to teach people, but nobody ever wanted to learn. And it wasn't really romantic, was it? But Cass didn't laugh at me or tell me that was a waste of time. She sat down, and a serious look came over her face. "Do you do anything else, like drawing or crafts?" Huh? I couldn't see the connection. I mean, yes, I like drawing and things like that. I couldn't tell her all of my hobbies. Then she would think I was a freak. "Why do you ask?" Cass sighed deeply. "To be honest, I could use your help." "Really?" "Yeah. I have a niece, the one who put glitter all over that letter. I'm awful with her. I never know what to do, and we have nothing in common, and I always say something that makes her cry. She loves art and writing, and I fix bikes." As Cass spoke, she pulled on her short blonde hair, and she somehow looked weak. "How about this?" I said. Suddenly my mouth was completely dry, and I had to take a big drink of water. "You help me with technology, and I'll teach you how to do stuff with your hands. I mean, that didn't sound how I meant it to," Cass laughed. "That sounds perfect." My mouth went dry again. "Really?" "Sure. You don't get fired. I fix my relationship with my niece." "Also," she said, moving forward and grabbing my chin, "you're really cute. I had fun tonight." Then she stood up and put on her coat. Now, instead of being dry, my whole body seemed to be made of water. "I'll email you tomorrow," she said. "We can find a date that works for both of us. Or wait, no. I'll send you a letter. I hope you don't hate my handwriting too much." I look forward to reading it. I got up and followed her to the door. For a moment we stood outside on the street. She moved a bit closer to me, and I thought that this was where the man would usually kiss the woman. But I wasn't that kind of man. "Good night," I said quickly. and ran away before she could reply. God, I was weak. End of chapter 1. We exchanged letters for several days. My handwriting improved with each one, but I definitely needed help. Sometimes I couldn't read what I'd written. I quickly discovered that Fergus was quite silly under his old-fashioned appearance. The endings to our letters had gone from kind regards to most especially kind, nice, sweet, soft, and careful regards. But despite our written flirtation, we still hadn't managed to arrange our first class. I kept inviting Fergus to my office, but Nigella always had a reason to stop him leaving. Not only that, she kept him working late, so I couldn't even see him afterwards. Finally, I decided this couldn't go on. I was starting to forget what he looked like, and although I loved his handwriting, it wasn't the same as seeing his cute face. Besides, I was starting to worry that maybe he didn't like me. I had flirted very directly with him on our date, and now it almost felt like he was hiding from me. I knew Nigella worked him hard, but I hadn't seen him once since the restaurant. Well, there was only one way to find out. Dear Fergus, it seems to me that the walls of Love Letter Inc. are not the right place for our classes. Would you like to come to my house this Saturday? I can teach you the ways of Microsoft Outlook, and you can take my writing level from a 5-year-old to an 8-year-old. Kindest, most wonderful regards, Cass. I quickly folded the letter and took it to the secretary. We were a big company, and we shared the building with another one, so the secretaries delivered messages and parcels between the departments. Fortunately for me, Nigella was on the other side of the place, and I rarely saw her. You're sending a lot of notes, said Craig, our secretary. He loved to talk about everything that happened in the office, and he was friends with Nigella, not someone to be trusted. Oh, you know what the people in some of the other departments are like. If I email them, they never reply. I'm sure, said Craig. His eyes briefly went down to the letter and then up again. I should have put it in an envelope. Now I was worried he would read it when I wasn't looking. But it was too late to take it back, so I just smiled and said, "Have a good afternoon, Craig." Fergus. Of course I answered yes. I had been trying to ask her on another date myself, but I always got scared. And was this even a date? It was really more of a class or something. Cass lived in one of those apartment blocks that grew out of the ground like huge trees. They scared me a bit, to be honest. I wondered what it was like to live on the top. What if you got drunk and fell out the window? Luckily, Cass lived on the 3rd floor. I knew I was in the right place when I saw the bike outside her door. It looked like she rode motorbikes and normal bikes, which seemed like far too many bikes for one person, but I was more of a walking guy. "Come in," Cass cried as soon as I knocked on the door. "It's open." I pushed the door open to find a very small apartment with a very big mess. All around there was equipment for fixing bikes, climbing mountains, and piles of toys which had to belong to Penny. "Sorry, sorry," Cass cried as she ran around trying to clear up. "I'm a pig. You can sit down." I found an empty space on the sofa and carefully sat down. The table was made of rough wood, and it looked like she had made it herself. There was a bottle of something on it. Engine oil? It made me feel like I was sitting in a garage, which wasn't something I'd actually ever done because garages were places for cool men who rode motorbikes. "It's fine," I said quietly. "Don't worry about me." After Cass had cleared up enough for herself, she pulled out a laptop and put it on the table and started explaining email systems to me. In the end, it was easier than I thought, but that was because Cass explained things well. She went slowly and gave lots of details. I could understand each part of the system, and I imagined she must think about motorbikes in the same way. I had never thought about it much, but I didn't usually understand how things worked. I just used them and got angry when they broke. Like with the photocopier. I didn't understand why I should learn about things like that. But now, hearing for the first time in my life what an email actually was, I started to feel curious. Maybe she could explain to me how an engine worked. After an hour or two, my brain was full up, and we took a break. I took the chance to look through Penny's craft materials. It was mostly pens and pencils, lots of glitter stamps and things like that. But she's really into writing letters now. Don't ask me why. She comes to visit me and gives me a letter and says, "Write me a reply," as if I'm not standing there. And it's embarrassing because her letters always look better than mine. "Well, do you have a proper desk?" She opened her eyes wide. "Number why? You can't write on this table. It's too low. I do find my back hurts when I write for a long time." Writing space is really important. If you don't have a desk, lie down on the sofa and use some pillows. Go on, try it. So she lay down and I sat on the floor next to her. She put an old book on 2 pillows and then put the paper on that. This is more comfortable," she said. She started writing and then I made a face. "Oh, what?" "It's just the way you're holding your pen. Here." Without thinking, I took her hand and started moving her fingers. Then I realized that we were basically holding hands. I looked up and she was so close, leaning over me from the sofa. "You have such soft hands," she said. "You like that?" "Yes." She moved her thumb over the back of my hand, but she continued to look in my eyes. "And your lips are too." I leant forward ready to kiss her. And then the door to her apartment flew open. I can't handle it anymore. Cass. I could have murdered Joe. Just when I was about to kiss Fergus, they flew into the room, killing the atmosphere. Joe didn't even seem to notice that Fergus was there. They slammed the door and walked around my apartment shouting about something that I couldn't understand. Their face was a mess covered in makeup that had been half washed away by tears. I stopped holding Fergus's hand. "Slow down, Joe. I can't follow you." Joe stopped suddenly and looked at me and then at Fergus. "Who are you?" they said. "This is Fergus's," I said. "Cup of tea?" "Nice to meet you." Joe said, not paying attention to Fergus. "I'd rather have vodka." "Tea it is," I said. "Now sit down and take some deep breaths." I tried to make the tea as quickly as I could because I could feel the awful atmosphere from the other room. It had to be relationship troubles, I thought, which meant that Joe would only be thinking about themselves. I heard Fergus try to talk to them, but they didn't even reply. I brought in 3 cups of tea and pulled up a chair to sit opposite Joe. Fergus looked quite scared, but was trying to smile. "Okay, what's going on?" I said, as Joe took breaths deep enough to eat a whale. "Men! That's the problem. I can't handle them anymore." "Which one was it this time?" I said, taking my tea between my hands. This was the story of Joe's life. They seemed to have the worst luck in the world with men, and many evenings they'd spent crying on my shoulder. I couldn't understand why. Yes, Joe was a lot, but they were beautiful and kind and exciting. Any man who acted like this towards them didn't deserve their time, but Joe always gave it to them. "Lance," they said, taking a big drink of tea. "Ow, I thought this was vodka." "Clearly you've already had enough vodka. What did Lance do?" Joe had been dating Lance for a while and was completely in love with him. I could see where this was going. Joe slammed the mug on the table, sending tea everywhere. Fergus jumped and spilled his own tea. "He's married." My mouth fell open. "Married? He kept that a secret even after saying all those things to you?" "I know. So like I told you, I can't handle it." They leant back on the sofa and sniffled. "I just don't get it. I'm so wonderful and glittery and exciting. That's what they all say. So why do they do this to me? Why are all men such pigs?" "Not all men are like that," said Fergus quietly. "I mean, you seem very nice. I'm sure there's—" "Ha!" Joe looked at Fergus. "I don't know who this guy is, Cass, but he doesn't get it." "Joe," I said, "be nice." "Sorry." They said, clearly not sorry. "But here's the truth. The only kind of men who would be good to me are the kind of men I'm not attracted to. I don't know why, but I only seem to fall in love with men with arms bigger than their brains. Why am I like this, Cass?" They started crying, and I knew I would be here all evening if this continued. Once Joe started asking, "Why am I like this?" it was a sign that things were serious. "Let me make some toast for you," I said, "to make you less drunk." When I came back from the kitchen, Fergus was gone. Where did he— "How should I know?" cried Joe. "He got up and left. Honestly, I don't know who that guy was, but the way he looked at me. And that comment. Not all men. Really, Cass, you need better friends." "Joe, shut up," I said, pushing the plate into his hands. "He just left?" "Yup. Didn't even say goodbye." I felt a big heavy stone fall into the bottom of my stomach. Thud. Joe was too much for Fergus. Joe was too much for most people, really. But could I be in a relationship with someone who saw my friends like that? You know, that was the guy you helped me write the letter for, right? Oh. Joe put down their toast guiltily. "The one you liked?" "Yeah." "Damn," said Joe, hitting themselves on the head. "We have to make it up to him. Fergus, the last thing I expected to find on Monday morning was a letter from Cass. I thought that our relationship was basically over. Clearly, I wasn't cool enough for her friends, or I was too old-fashioned or whatever. After hearing that conversation, I didn't think she'd want to keep talking to me. Dear Fergus, I'm really, really sorry for what happened on Saturday. Joe has a very special way of dealing with their problems. They didn't mean to get angry at you. They didn't realize who you were. Let me make it up to you. We'll go for a drink tonight or whenever Nigella lets you out. I'll pay and I can explain all about Joe if you want. Exciting and glittery regards. Joe wrote this sorry Cass. I felt a bit better about what had happened. She did like me. I would just have to get used to her friends. But that was true in any relationship, right? I wanted to show her that I was learning, so I replied by email. Hey, Cass, you told me that emails should be less serious than letters, so I wrote, Hey, are you proud of me? Soon I'll be using emojis. I'd love to go for a drink. Nigella's away today, so I can leave at 5. Meet you outside? Glitterless, but still exciting regards, Fergus. A few minutes later, I got my reply. Great see you then. 5 o'clock couldn't come soon enough. Cass. After a few drinks, we'd cleared everything up. I explained the whole situation with Joe and made it clear that they weren't angry at Fergus, and he apologized for leaving without saying anything. I thought you must hate me. Hey, I said, taking his hand, I really like you. He smiled wider than he ever had before, and my heart jumped a little. Have you ever written poetry before? He asked. Poetry? I tried to remember if I had. Back in university, when I was first discovering I liked girls, I had written some drunken love poems for someone. But I didn't know if you could call those poetry. That's what I do when I have feelings like this, he said. Good feelings, bad feelings all mixed together. It's like looking at a bowl of food when you don't know what it is. You've got to taste it, you know. Poetry is tasting for the mind. I have no idea what you're talking about. I said, but please continue. Oh, God, he said, looking at his drink. I must be quite drunk if I'm telling you all about poetry and mind food. I'm interested, really. Look, I can't write that. His mouth fell open and then closed again. You just do it, he said, as if it was the easiest thing in the world. Easy for you to say. I don't know anything about art. Not true, he said. Think of a motorbike engine. Isn't that art? I snorted. It's bits of metal and oil. How is that art? There's art in everything. Look, poetry doesn't have to rhyme if that's what you're worried about. But it can, of course. Think of it like... He picked up my empty glass of beer and held it in front of his eye. Everything looks different through here. Careful you'll get beer on your eye, I said. Too drunk to care, but poetry is like explaining the world through an empty beer glass. Or something. If it's so easy, why don't you write a poem now? He slammed the glass down on the table and smiled. Oops. I didn't mean to put that down so hard. But you know what? I think I will write a poem. He cleared his throat. Sat at a bar in a city bigger than my heart. All around me life moves, beats, jumps. But the only place I can breathe is in your art. Ugh. He took a big drink of beer. That was terrible. That was like mine McDonald's. I promise I can do much better. Wait, that was bad for you? I said. That was... it wasn't perfect, but it was a taste of my mind, Fergus said and winked. Oh, I liked it when he was confident and flirty. That was cute, and it was delicious. Your turn. It can be about anything. I puffed my lips like a horse. Fine, then. I'm full of beer and full of you. I'd love to get some fish and chips, but in my heart what I really want is to know the taste of your lips. Fergus's eyes went wide. Very funny. And you... I grabbed his face and kissed him. End of Chapter 2. Dear Heart, Chapter 3. Fergus riding a motorbike was terrifying. At least the first 5 minutes were. I held on to Cass so tight I thought I might suffocate her. But that helped because the soft leather of her jacket pressed against my face, and I could feel her heartbeat, close but far away, under the sound of the engine. She drove carefully, and within a few minutes, I was feeling more comfortable. The roads weren't too busy at this time on a Monday night, although she shouldn't have been driving at all. The alcohol and excitement had taken control of both of us. I didn't quite throw my hands into the air and shout, "I'm free," but I did hold her a bit, less tight, felt the motorbike move beneath me, watched the world fly past us. I thought I could quite enjoy this if I did it more often. Her place wasn't far, and when we arrived, I almost fell off the bike. Cass turned around and caught me, her strong arms pulling me up, and just like that, we were kissing again. She held my face in her gloved hands, and I tasted the heat of her lips in the cold night air, as well as the soft press of leather. But I needed her touch. "Shall we?" "Hey." She picked me up and carried me up the stairs, taking away any masculinity I still had. But I realized I didn't care. I was a man for her, wasn't I? She carried me through the door like I was her bride and dropped me on the sofa. "Now," she said, pulling off her gloves. "You still have to teach me about poetry. I really don't know very much. Do we write with a pen or our bodies?" I grinned. "We can use both." And we did. The next morning I woke up in her arms with something sharp pressing into my back. I felt behind me and found a piece of paper. Actually, the bed was full of paper, all with drunken love poems written on them. We'd been doing prompts, I remembered, after drinking a lot of gin. We started each poem with the same phrase, wrote them, and then compared. Most of them were awful, I was sure, but one in particular stayed in my mind. The prompt was "Dear Heart," which I chose because of our love letters. I looked around on the bed trying to find the prompt, but it was impossible. All right, I'll wake up," groaned Cass, turning over and kissing me on the cheek. For once, real life is sweeter than dreams. You're still thinking like a poet, I see. She held me in her arms and bit my ear. Ow! Mind food, she whispered, and I laughed. I got a very good taste of it last night. My heart froze as I remembered what we had done. I had let her take control, given myself to her completely. You don't find me too soft? I said, still unable to believe it. That's what I like about you. She started playing with my hair and her voice went sad. I was with some pretty awful men when I was younger. I looked her in the eyes. Do you want to talk about it? She smiled. You're sweet. But no, I'm okay. I didn't know I liked girls back then, so I was just going with whatever guy would have me. I didn't realize I should actually be attracted to them. Now I know that I like them soft. She pressed her hand onto my chest where my heart was. See? And just like that, I melted. Cass. I drove us to work. It was awful trying to get ready quickly after drinking so much the night before and on a Tuesday, but it felt great to drive my boyfriend into work. Oh, he was definitely my boyfriend now. We stopped in the car park and I took him into my arms. I don't want to let you go into Nigella's hands, I said. Well, we've got about... He checked his watch. Of course he had an old-fashioned watch and not a digital one. 5 more minutes. That's at least 500 more kisses. Oh, I didn't realize you were an Olympic kisser. I grinned. I don't just work on my arms, you know. But after a few kisses, I started to feel curious about something. So are we like boyfriend and girlfriend? He went red in that cute way he always did. If you want to. If I didn't, I wouldn't be kissing you where everyone can see us. Then he grinned. All right then. My heart sang, but there was still a drop of doubt there. Have you been with a woman like me before? I had had this happen before with guys. They loved me in private, but they never wanted to introduce me to their friends. I was too strong, too masculine, too much. He bit his lip. Actually, I've only ever been in one relationship, and it didn't go great. Oh? I held a finger to his chin so that he looked me in the eyes. He looked scared. She wasn't the right person for me. She didn't like writing letters. No, nothing like that. She wanted to get married? We didn't get that far, it was. She had an annoying dog. She bullied me, he cried, and then covered his mouth. Little tears started to form in the corners of his eyes like jewels. Oh, God. There I went again, pushing and pushing, trying to be cute and fun, but I wasn't. I was a bull. I'm sorry, I said quickly. She called me names, she laughed at me, I pulled him into my chest. Shh, shh, say no more. I shouldn't have kept asking. He sighed into me. He was shaking. Thank you. Don't thank me. I'm sorry. I pulled off my gloves and cleaned his tears. My soft little Fergus was more broken than I thought, and the IT part of my brain screamed again and again. Fix him, fix him, fix him. But could I? What if I just hurt him like his last girlfriend? Fergus. I hadn't meant to cry in the car park. I felt silly and hoped that people at work wouldn't all be talking about it. I decided to visit Cass at lunch to make it up to her. I went to the coffee shop across the road and got 2 large coffees with chocolate croissants. If everyone had seen us in the car park, there was no reason to hide our relationship. But when I arrived at her department, she wasn't there. "She's out fixing something still," said one of the IT guys. He looked unhappy that I was there during lunch. Not that his looked very nice. He was eating a supermarket sandwich at his desk, getting bits of bread all over his keyboard. "Do you know when she'll be back?" "How should I know? She doesn't talk to the rest of us." Huh, that was strange. I couldn't imagine Cass being shy or unfriendly. So he said, "How long have you been riding the bull?" I almost dropped my coffee. "Sorry," he grinned. "Oh, come on. You know what I mean. She's hardly a natural beauty, is she? Though I suppose if she put on some makeup, she might look okay." I carefully put my coffee down, trying to hide the fact that I was shaking. If this was how the other guys in her department were, I could see why she didn't speak to them. Don't call her that. The man's eyes went wide, and then he laughed, sending bits of lettuce and mayonnaise flying into the air. "Oh, God, you're in love with the bull? Didn't she make you cry in the car park?" My cheeks burned. I said, "Don't call her that." He smiled like a cat that had just found a tasty mouse. "Or what? You'll suffocate me with your bow tie." Just give these to her when she gets back," I said, pushing the coffee and croissant towards him. I ran away knowing that he wouldn't. He would eat the croissant, and I could do nothing to stop it. Cass. The next few days I was busy with work and looking after Penny, but that Friday Fergus invited me round to his place. I was hoping to repeat our last night together, but as soon as I walked inside, I knew that wouldn't happen. Fergus's apartment was like walking into a charming British film, the kind that Americans love. It was filled with wooden furniture, all clean and shiny, and every room seemed to have at least 5 bookcases in it. Even the kitchen. And there were paintings on all the walls. Apart from a poster in my bedroom, I didn't have anything like that. There were even little statues of cats on some of the shelves. This was not a place for getting drunk and writing love poems in bed. "How did you afford this place?" I said, moving as carefully as I could. I was worried I might break something. "It was my grandmother's, and I got it when she died. That's partly why I moved to the city. I couldn't just sell the place. Tea." "Sure. I'm sorry to hear about your grandmother." "Oh, don't be. She was a horrible woman. Good at choosing furniture, though." He put on the kettle and showed me around. His bedroom was much less tidy than the other rooms, which made me feel better, and his bed looked very comfortable. "What's in that room?" I said, pointing to the one door he hadn't opened. That's where I do one of my hobbies." "And you aren't going to show me?" I thought of all the things he might want to hide from me. Did he catch animals and cut them apart? Did he collect dolls? It's embarrassing. You'll think I'm really weird. Fergus, I said, taking his shoulders. You really think that? Then I realized how I was talking to him and pulled away. I'd been worrying all week, thinking about how his ex had treated him. Did she hold him like I did? Did she speak to him like that, as if she was in control and he was just a child? All right then, but promise not to laugh. He opened the door to show a small study. There were shelves on each side and a small antique desk, but instead of books, the shelves held typewriters. There were all kinds, smart black ones that you could have put a bow tie on bright green ones, small ones for traveling. They all looked clean and tidy, ready to be picked up and used. On the desk sat a small black typewriter with paper still in it. You collect them? Yeah. Half of them don't work, of course, or it's too hard to find the parts to fix them. Not that I'd know how to fix them. I can help with that. He had been looking at the floor, as if he thought I might leave, but now he looked up with his mouth wide open. Really? You'd help me with my weird hobby. Oh, my poor Fergus. His ex must have laughed about his hobby all the time if he was acting like this. I wanted to find her and hurt her for what she did. Of course, I said. Show me one of the broken ones. He lifted an old machine from the shelf. It was clearly very heavy, so I helped him carry it to the desk. It was tall and looked very old. It's a rare one, he explained. It cost me a lot. My brain immediately started thinking like an IT person. So what's the problem? I moved forward to touch it and Fergus cried, "Careful!" But it was too late. My big fat finger fell on the X key, pressing it too hard, and it broke off, falling onto the table. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I immediately tried to put the key back, but of course I couldn't. The metal was old and rusty and would need to be replaced. Just leave it, said Fergus, his voice sounding as cold and rusty as the machine. God, Fergus, I'm really sorry. I'm just like a big bull. It's okay, he said, his voice sounding a little more human. But let's go sit in the other room. I'll look at it later. I almost ran out of the room, worried I would break something else. We sat down to tea and Fergus managed to hide his disappointment. But I didn't think I'd be seeing that room again anytime soon. It was better that way. I wasn't the right person to work with delicate things like that. Fergus made dinner spaghetti bolognese and told me all about Nigella. She's happy with the new email system, so I've got you to thank. But now she seems to think I'm a hard worker. She gets me to do everything for her. She even makes me clean her desk. I'll go talk to her for you. Please don't, he said, pushing his fork into the spaghetti. I don't want her thinking I'm weaker than she already does. I bit my tongue. Of course I couldn't come in and save him. What was I thinking? He had to fight Nigella on his own. I wished I could help him. I stayed the night and we wrote poetry again. But this time was different. It was slower, quieter, softer. Fergus melted in my arms and I almost managed to forget what I'd done. but I woke up in the middle of the night and couldn't get back to sleep. I pulled out my phone and texted Joe. I made a big mistake. Fergus collects old typewriters, and I broke one of them, a really old special one. Why am I such a bull? They responded almost immediately. Girl, you're a strong, attractive motorbike riding woman who can fix anything. If he can't handle you, he doesn't deserve you, I snorted. If only Joe was as good at taking their advice as they were at giving it. Thanks, I texted back. Fergus. Dear Barry, I'm sorry for not writing sooner. I've read all your letters and I'm so happy to hear about the kittens. Send me a picture next time. Life has been crazy here. My new boss is a cruel woman who expects me to change all the technology. Luckily, I found someone to help me out. Actually, she's not just helping me with emails. She's my girlfriend. I know how surprised you must be. After Hilda, I didn't think I would find anyone, as I told you many times. At least I didn't think I would find anyone who liked me as I am. But in the end, you were right. There are women who like soft men. The only problem is, I'm too soft. She came round yesterday and I showed her my typewriter collection. She said she'd help me fix them and I got all excited, which was stupid. It's very delicate work and it's so easy to damage the machines. I showed her the Shoals in Glidden. You know, the one I had to order from America? She was just trying to help, but she broke off one of the keys. I tried to hide it, but I felt awful, like it was my finger that had been broken. How ridiculous is that? Why is it that I can care so much about an old machine? I know she didn't mean to do it, and I know that typewriter probably can't be fixed anyway, but I still feel so... I don't know how to describe it. Maybe I should go write some poetry. Yes, I think that's what I'll do. I've got that mix of feelings and I'm telling myself that I can't be with her, but that's stupid. It's just a typewriter, isn't it? That doesn't take away all the wonderful moments I've shared with her. Oh, I'll have to tell you all about it in the next letter, love. From an old friend, Fergus. End of chapter 3.